Everyone, if you've been enjoying the conversation so far, well, thanks. I'm glad you are. Hit that follow button, even though, so yeah, if you're brand new, right, and just getting introduced to the channel, hit that follow button right now. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. It is all the time. Don't want you to miss out on any of these conversations. We've had a lot of good ones. Our Saturday stream was fantastic, I think. So you missed out on some great content there. So hit that follow button right this second. Exclamation for social and chat for our social media. We got a lot of it, right? We got Twitter where we tweet things. We have Discord where we have all our conversations, right? In voice and in text, we have a lot of conversations there. We'd love to have you part of our Discord. Jump on in, right? TikTok is where we have funny videos that we're posting from like the channel, and then YouTube. If you missed anything, if you missed any of our talks, go to YouTube. That's where you find the VODs, right? Like, comment, and subscribe so that you can get that content there, and consider becoming a YouTube member, hitting that join button. Supporting us that way as well. All right, so let's go to our second topic. Excuse me. Our second topic, which I think is a pretty good one. Now that Roe is a thing of the past, restrictions and bans will be reinstated. One restriction could be to require notification of the father of the child. Would that be a fair restriction? Even if the father doesn't officially get a say, should they at least be notified that the child will be terminated? Or would this restriction make it too difficult for women to access the procedure? All right, so this is something as I was saying previously on Saturday, that I'm actually quite torn about. I'm not sure where I stand on this, and I could probably be convinced either way. Yeah, like I think there was specifically a case, actually, we were talking about this on Saturday. There was a case in Pennsylvania, I believe, that in which they passed a law saying that the husband must be notified, and the Supreme Court struck that down. And it's like, well, how would I feel in that situation? I'd want to know. I think a lot of guys who would want to know as well. So we're going to go down the line, do opening statements. Start with my friend Eucharist.
Yeah, this was an interesting topic. It was something that I had not thought about a lot, because it's like within the scope of potential restrictive policies, right? It exists in a world where we're saying, here's a case where an abortion can happen, and we're going to allow it on the condition that there's a notification of whoever fathered the child. I still need to think about it a little bit more. It's a lot more clear cut to me that, for example, in the case of minors, that parents should have there should be some sort of notification law there, which, speaking of like the numbers, and people in the chat have posted the most recent Pew Research polls on this. Over 50% of Americans support, under 18 people seeking abortions. Their parents should be notified. Whether or not the father should be notified, I'm still like, I'm still on the fence about this, because as I've mentioned to Prime before, I fully believe, and I know that this is true, actually talking to women who've experienced this, that there are lots of circumstances where it is the father who is pressuring them to get an abortion. It is the father who is abusing them. It is, or, in the case of rape or incest, right? Like it may be, like who the father is may be itself like a dangerous thing to identify publicly. So I don't know. Tangentially related to this are things like, I see every time, abortion restrictions come up, someone will inevitably say, so you think from the moment a child is conceived, like the father should be responsible for it, child support and all that. And I'm just like, yeah, fucking base, let's do that. Like, so that kind of thing I would support a lot more, in the case where a woman needs help and can demand support. I that's a lot more intuitive to me. Whether or not in a case where abortion is legal, a woman is seeking it, father has to be notified. I don't know. I'm willing to listen to you guys on this and suss out my own feelings on it.
Fair enough, Kai.
Sorry, I had to unmute there. Anyway, this one's actually I'm not gonna say it's hard for me, because like the fact that dad has to say off I get it, but there's a level where it just gets a little bit overbearing for me. Like if anyone's actually gonna scream patriarchy, I probably would go with it on that one. But on the other side of this, putting this in the moral context that I personally have, this is why I don't believe in like equality and equity and shit, because you get down to issues like this to where there are fundamental differences between people, and this is one of them that we cannot ignore. Abortion is a woman's issue. It is not a man's issue. So how do you get equality? How do you get a decency and fairness in this? And my honest answer is you don't. Someone's going to walk away from this conversation incredibly upset, incredibly pissed, because they got, you would call it either a reproductive right or a parental right taken away from them. If you give women, or as an example, like more majority choice in abortion, many men are going to feel like they have a free license to kill their children, whether you agree with that or not. On the other side is that if men feel like they don't get any kind of say in that conversation at all, they're going to be offended. Or I'm sorry, flip that around. If women feel like that they have to answer to men all the time, then they're going to feel like that they're second-class citizens. Yeah, no one's going to be happy walking away with this one. So I don't really have an answer for this, truthfully, out of the bag, because when it gets down to equality and tolerance, someone has to lose. Someone has to win in this. And I probably will simply say that I'll side with the women to a large degree on this one, because they have to bear like the actual carrying of this child. Men can walk away even without the legal pressure. So I'll close with that.
Thank you. Fanatic.
Yeah, I would say that ultimately, I like the idea of the father having to be notified, only because of the fact that, like, yeah, there's too many situations where, yeah, you have like women who like, a man is required to do like child support and things like that, like in cases in which he's determined to be the father. Hell, they're even required to do child support in cases where they're not determined to be the father in plenty of situations. So I would say that, yeah, ultimately the father should have to be notified. I don't think it makes it too difficult for a woman to have an abortion in these situations. I mean, they still have the same access. Like, it's not like notifying the father. It's not like the question asked, should the father be able to have? Sorry, it's not like the question asked, should the father be able to determine it as well? So I just don't. I don't. Yeah, it just seems like doesn't make anything more complicated, and it should be a two people situation. And abortion absolutely affects men. There are plenty of situations in which a man and a woman gets pregnant by a man, and he absolutely wants the kid, and the woman decides, I want to have an abortion, and now he feels like his kid is being terminated. So I don't understand how it wouldn't affect the men too.
Thank you. Ginger, please.
I think that it is difficult to discuss, but I do feel that I wish more people would be more serious about having sex. And when I speak on that, I just mean that I feel like it should be a conversation had. Like, hey, if something happens, you know, what's the process in your mind? What's going through your head? I wish that was, you know, the more thing. I feel like people are taking less and less or taking more and more risks with who they sleep with and everything, which is fine. But if you're not willing to have that conversation with, is it really that important to be doing? Like, I feel like I think that the man should be involved. Sometimes that can't be the case, or but I do feel like they should at least be allowed to know what's happening with that child.
Thank you so much. Genevieve.
Yeah, I think that Ginger raised a really important point right there. And absolutely, I think everybody who is engaging in sexual activity that could result in pregnancy should be communicating with their partner what their beliefs are, what their thoughts towards the matter are. I think that sex requires a lot of communication, and that's one important piece of it is, you know, we're both participating in this this behavior or this act, and you know, we all know there are potential consequences. What might we do should that arise? That's 100% a super valid conversation, and I would encourage people to try and have those difficult ones. Once the pregnancy has already been established and the pregnant person is seeking out an abortion, I think that it would be reasonable and fair for the provider's office to inquire? Have you notified the father? Is that something that you would be comfortable with to inquire in some point? I do not believe it should be a requirement. I think it could be a best practice, but of course there's some instances where there's a lot of valid reasons why there might need to be precedent to keep it confidential and to keep it private. It's her choice to determine whether or not she wants to remain pregnant. Both parties can be responsible in choosing if they want to be a parent once a child is born. And if you do not want to be a parent, you have the option to forfeit your parental rights. And that does mean if you choose to do that, then you don't have to pay child support. So if that's really your factor here, most states will allow you to forfeit your rights, and that will relieve you of any financial responsibility in addition to all of the other things that go along with being a parent.
So are you for or against unification of abortion?
I would say whenever possible. Whenever possible. I think it's a best practice, but I don't think it should be a requirement.
Right, whenever possible.
Doobie.
I'm okay with requiring it if all it means is, shooting the dude an email or something. I think when you start requiring like a reporting, you get really close to requiring the partner to be okay with the abortion, or to sign off on the abortion. And I don't think that's a barrier that should exist, or even like I don't even think the ghost of that barrier should exist. Right? So I don't know. It just seems like there's not much reason to do this. I think if it's the woman's issue, it's her decision. It's simple as that.
Wick.
So, I will say this, that I think that it is something that the woman should do, is inform the father. I think that is something that they are morally have a duty to do. But when it comes to mandating it by law, there's some obvious issues I have with that. One being that there's a very good reason some women would choose to keep their pregnancy secret, or their choice to have an abortion secret, from the father, right? Especially if you grow up in a very religious community or religious household, the amount of real danger you might put yourself in when it comes to that is huge. And so I think that requiring it by law is probably not a good idea. And like I said, I agree with Madam Genevieve on this. Best practice, right? Morally, you should get the input of the father, right? As a woman on this, you should inform them. You say, hey, this is what I want to do. And you should make the decision together as a couple. But being that there is so many exceptions to that I can think of just off the top of my head, right? I would say that mandating it by law is a very bad idea, and we shouldn't subject women to have to do that. So yeah, that's my thought.
Open to the panel. Okay. Anyone? All right. I guess
we solved it, gang. We did it.
Yeah, I feel like we all kind of agreed on that.
I don't think we did.
Well, does anyone disagree with that take? Like, does anyone disagree that there are very good reasons?
I didn't even hear what Wick said. I have him muted. But what I would say, one, it's absolutely not true at all, Genevieve, that you can just like say that you don't want like get rid of your parental rights and then you don't have to pay.
I know that it is because my biological father did that in the 80s. So thank you very much. My mother has sole custody.
I know that it is. I know that it isn't because I just Googled it and there's literally no way that you can actually buy it. I know. So you're doing that interrupting thing again. Shut up. You're doing that interrupting thing again. I need you to shut up for a second so I can make my point. So I can't make a point again. I need you to shut up once again. I'm trying to make a point and automatically you're interrupting me, saying you learned from your mistake, but you didn't. So shut up while I'm talking.
I've actually
shut up while I'm talking. 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 Tell her to shut up while I'm talking. Thank you. Anyway, to the point I was making.
Calm down, everyone.
Anyway, I am calm. I just need her to shut up while I'm talking. Anyway, so the point that I'm making is that you cannot do that while you're in any states. In no states do they have it to where you can just voluntarily terminate your rights and then not be responsible for child support. Except. Will you shut up while I'm talking or not? Shut up. Dang, shut up. I'm talking. Shut up. It's that simple. Shut up while I'm talking. You're not. Shut up. Anyway, So I'm sorry.
No,
What?
I'm just saying, Genevieve, that I promise you'll be able to respond. Right? I promise you, and give you space. To
What a
respond
freaking
as soon as
mercy!
it's done,
Shut
okay?
up.
Go
It's
ahead.
not that hard. Shut up. No one's talking to you. Shut up. Anyway, so the point is that I'm gonna have to mute her too. Jesus. The point is, no state allows you to terminate your rights unless you're doing so for the purposes of adoption. And I think so. Like the idea is, it is a 2-person decision. You are going to be on the hook for it if you're a man in that situation. So like the idea that you shouldn't have any say so in like the final results just seems a little bit ridiculous. Like obviously, like it's not just on the woman. Yes, she'll be the one getting the procedure. That person's child is terminated. And like you can like do simple things like ask any man if your wife was pregnant with your child and some man punched her in the stomach and she lost that baby, would you feel violated? Not just because he punched the wife, but also because you lost your child. And the answer is yes. And not only is the answer yes with most men, in certain jurisdictions, they'll literally criminally punish you for doing that to a person, right? Like you can, if you kill a person and they happen to be pregnant, you'd get assault on an unborn child. So like this isn't like brand new like rocket science here. We know this to be the case. So I would say that if we know that this is something that where people would take like incredibly personal and it would be really harmful, then yeah, it makes all the sense in the world that we should probably say that this is something that like you should have some sort of say so in. Like you would be tasked with protecting the child in certain scenarios. So why wouldn't we say that yeah, you have some say so in whether this child is actually born?
I think culture.
Oh, no,
go on.
Genevieve. Yeah.
Sorry, Fanatic, I had you muted. I went ahead and took your advice for how to deal with people who don't seem to want to engage with ideas. But what I will say here is this. You don't get to tell me the legal precedent of what happened in my childhood. If your Google somehow is bringing up results that are different than what legally happened, where my father gave up his rights and didn't have a responsibility to pay child support, and my mother became the sole parent, okay, cool. I'm glad you were in that courtroom, and I'm glad that you were present for that and you remember it better than I do who lived it. But to be honest,
Isn't
I don't
that
really have
considered-
anything more to say to you.
Isn't that considered a paper abortion?
I'm sorry?
Isn't that considered a paper abortion?
I've never heard that term before, so it might be, but I don't know what term that is.
No? Okay.
What's that? Yeah, I don't know what a paper abortion is. If you could tell us what that is, that'd be useful. Go to Wicked and
Hold
Doobie.
on. Yeah.
In the chat, my mom did actually request child support. Thanks again for being so much more familiar with my life than I am. But again, it was a battle that went on for quite
Here
a
comes the
long time.
cry bully. So now all of a sudden we're all like, we none of us know what we're talking about. This is so
It can be
funny.
done.
You liar.
very
Anyone can
well
do a
might
simple
be.
Google search. Like
It
there's no
very
way that
well
you can
might
actually
be.
do that. The only way that you can actually put like voluntarily give away your parental rights is with adoption. That's it. And in which case, in such cases, and yeah, you wouldn't be responsible.
Let's go to
I'm
Wicked.
sure that there are.
Liar.
Look, I'm
the
sure
paper-
that there's. Go on, please. Explain the
I was
paper
just going to
abortion.
explain.
Yeah.
The paper abortion is also known as a financial abortion, where they just they're able to sign a paper if the woman agrees and signs as well, that they are able to give up their need to financially support this child.
I've heard
So
like
just real quick,
MRAs talk about this, but I didn't think it was a real thing.
it is a real thing.
I just like where and
I
need-
know that I don't know if it's still. I haven't looked at it. I'm so sorry, but I think that Oregon and Washington both have those laws in place.
Yeah, so I just want to speak to why just a simple Google search is usually not enough. It's going to give you the impression that you know what you're talking about, but it will likely, especially in scenarios like this where we're Googling on the fly, I get it, I understand, but a very surface level understanding things. And to present that as if you have this deep understanding, there are no exceptions to the one link you clicked on, or maybe the 2 links you clicked on, is just asinine to me, right? And cowards will mute people, and cowards will say, hey, I don't want to engage with things. And I get it. Sometimes muting people is funny. It's fun. It's enjoyable to do. I enjoy doing it. But back to the topic at hand, right? I think that, like, culturally, we understand that there are situations where if both parties consent to it, whether or not it is currently legal in all states, it might be something to look into, to advocate for, to make it legal in more states, right? Where people can have access to, as Ginger Ramoth was referring to, a paper abortion, where they can, in the agreement of the mother, sever parental responsibilities and parental rights. I think that's probably a good thing if both parties consent to this, right? I think that's something we should look to. To the topic, though, to the question actually of whether we should mandate people being required to report, I'm going to get an abortion, and how much say the dad can get into it. Again, at the end of the day, I think Tiberius D had the best take on this. Someone's going to walk away feeling their rights are violated, and they would be right. But in this case, the woman carries it. The woman carries the brunt of the responsibility just naturally. So I think that we should err on the side of the woman in this case.
Go to Fanatic, then sorry, not Fanatic. Sorry, I'm at Doobie, then Eucharist. Doobie, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Hello.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't think the feelings of the father should really matter here. Yeah, he might feel violated in the same way that he might feel violated if he found out, some dude was punching his wife's vagina with his dick. But, in that case and in other cases, we can set aside his feelings, be like, hey, it's her body, her decision, what happens with it. So, yeah, sorry, you feel bad, but fuck off. I don't really see a good argument for making it illegal for her to make the decision on her own in either case.
Eucharist?
I mean, I don't really know. I'm viscerally opposed to whatever Doobie just said, because I think that's bullshit. I think, again, I'm religious. I have some grand ideas. I think I'm sort of metaphysically connected to my progeny, and so I think I have a perfectly justifiable right to be really bothered if my child is killed, let's say after birth or before. But how that translates to this policy decision, I'm not entirely sure. Again, I think there's people have brought up perfectly reasonable health and safety issues. So again, in a world, in a state where abortion is allowed, and we say this is the right of the woman, and here's the reason, it's your bodily autonomy, it seems weird that we would say someone else, because of the paternal relationship there, gets now to violate that. So I just don't know how you could defend that within kind of the scope of what I think the abortion permissible world y'all are defending. In a world where abortion doesn't happen, this isn't an issue. Well, I was going to say, in a world where abortion isn't openly happening, this isn't an issue. In a world where, like Europe, where it's permitted up to a certain number of weeks, maybe that's more viable in certain circumstances.
Well, can I ask you a question, Eucharist? Just to kind of get your thought here. So in a more restrictive environment, right, where it's you only got exceptions for health and safety of the mother, and the health of the woman, the mother in this case, is at risk, and let's say 50%. I don't know the exact number here, right? But do you think that the father should have input into that legally, or should it be only the mother's decision of what risks she should be able to take, or should she be willing to take in this case? Do you think the father should have any say?
No, I would say in a case so again, this is my very ill-informed position, but in my hippy-dippy paradise of Malta, where elective abortions are banned, but abortions that are actually medically necessary happen on the regular and maternal mortality is low, in a circumstance where premature induction is actually clinically indicated, I'm not sure how I would legally enforce that decision. I would like, of course, in every circumstance for a couple to be making that decision together. I've known people who have had, adverse health conditions that made carrying a pregnancy to term very risky, likely death, and have chosen to go through with it. Some who have died, some who have not. I consider that an honorable choice on their part. But in the case where that's a medically indicated thing, I would probably want to default to the woman and say her husband coming in and saying no, you gotta die, you gotta give birth, it's what we're doing. That seems very weird to me.
Yeah, just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think you're wrong, Fanatic, when you say that a woman has equal access to reproductive services when we notify the father, right? Because then the father could the father could be abusive to this individual in the first place, and say absolutely not, right? The moment you tell them, it's the same thing with notifying parents, right? Which was, I was going to disagree with you, Chris, on that one previously, right? Notifying parents when a person is underage, right? Well, the parents can put undue pressure on this individual and then deny them that care. So it's not equal. It's not simply equal when we say that these other extraneous individuals have to be notified. There is a cost, right? For some people, it won't be a problem, right? Sometimes the father will be there with them, trying to help them get this procedure done. But in other cases, they will absolutely pressure them, threaten them. All kinds of things can be done to this individual. Maybe even kill them. But, to protect them. Yeah.
Prime, can we genuinely like say like we shouldn't do a law because there will be some incredibly bad actors that will do something illegal and therefore we need to prevent it? Like the laws are not for the laws aren't for the law. I mean the laws are for the law abiding people, right? Like we make these laws like you're basically just saying there's some abusive people that are going to be abusive regardless of whether you make this a law or not, right? And like because of that we should protect this, and that just seems like so untenable.
My point is that we would be enabling abuse. So the law in this case, like one, the law isn't necessary to begin with, right? So we don't necessarily have to have the law. Don't have to have it at all. But I'm saying that adding it has a cost, right? And we as intelligent individuals who can look at the world around us, like if the purpose of the law is to protect people, well then in that case we would not want to force notification, because that could put someone in a dangerous situation. If the law puts other people within a dangerous situation, then that's a problem in and of itself.
Well, one of the other purposes of the law is to do the will of the people, and I would say that there are plenty of men that want to know when these kind of things happen. Because let's talk about something else that gets protected. When women decide to go ahead and cheat in a relationship, and then they want to terminate the pregnancy in order to hide it from the father, so that way he's not aware that she's cheating on him. Then that's one of the methods of doing that. Right. So then I would say that maybe there's a great deal of men that would want to know, like in such situations, hey, I'm being cheated on. So that way they can get rid of I mean, so then that way, yeah, they're notified, right?
But they
Like,
wouldn't be the
That's
father.
something different. Yeah, that's something
they
different.
wouldn't
So
be
I
the
was
father.
talking
It
about
would be the
father
father.
notification. You're talking about husband notification. That's different.
well, the husband we would assume would be the father in this situation, and in most of these
Yeah.
in most of these
In
cases,
the
it's not like they're
hypothetical
going to
you
sit here
gave, he wasn't the
and
father. What
like
are you
test
talking about?
the dude to make sure that he's not the father, right? Like we're not assuming that, right?
I mean, how could we like we shouldn't you with the situation you've just given, right? It shows that we can't make that assumption. We can't make an assumption that within a married couple that the husband is the father, right? I mean, in fact, like this is like the whole men rights activist point. Like we should always be testing these kids, because we can't trust women because who knows where they've been when we weren't around, right?
No, I totally think. Well, yes, I think actually just mandatory like testing should be a thing. I don't think it's that expensive. It wouldn't. It's a mild inconvenience, and then yeah, that way you don't
Mandatory
have like these
paternal
situations
testing?
where
Is
people
that's
are
what
paying
he's
for kids that
advocating
aren't
for?
actually theirs.
Mandatory paternal testing.
Transparency never hurts anything.
that
It gives
crazy.
people confidence and so on and so forth. I don't think it's a really wild idea. That sounds like a good
Yeah, I
idea.
agree with Fnatic on that point.
But yeah, but even more so, like I would say that like yeah, you would make the assumption no matter what, if until that thing is in place, you would make the assumption that like okay, the father is the husband in whatever cases, or whoever she identifies. So yeah, people could still cheat and say, hey, like I'm notifying the father, but it's not really the father. They could, but you know, I think
What if the husband goes into a rage and beats the living crap out of his pregnant wife?
he would be prosecuted in that situation.
But I'm saying that you could put this individual in danger. Unfortunately, domestic violence is a reality of the world. And so to avoid that situation, which like we can't save her before it happens, right? But we can avoid putting her in that situation, like, you know, by not having this regulation in place.
Yeah, I don't think I would ever just say like we're not gonna put a law in place because like some dudes might be bad enough to like domestically abuse a person because of it.
You would
Like
say that
the
in
vast
other
majority of people
situations.
won't, and like
You would
those
say
bad
that
people
we
will just
probably
can
shouldn't put a
be
law that might
domestically abusive
adversely
for other
affect
reasons. Like,
minorities because there's real
it just doesn't seem
danger
like a
there.
good enough
That's
reason
what
to
you would
avoid
argue,
this,
Fanatic.
in my opinion.
I'm
It's just
sorry,
that-
Fanatic. It's making it difficult because like people are like saying things to you and you can't hear them. But like
who,
in
Wick?
terms of
No one
racial
cares about
minor-
Wick. It doesn't matter. Go
but in
ahead.
terms of, but he's making a good point in terms of racial minorities, right? And I'm trying to figure out. I know I can figure out an example of this. I just can't think of it at this point in time, but if I put some thought into it, I'm sure I could.
Stop
In
and frisk.
which stop and frisk.
Stop and frisk is
would you
an
think stop and
excellent
frisk?
example.
Stop and frisk puts African Americans in more danger because of
Allegedly.
contact with the law, right? Like because it gives more, or putting officers in school. I'm not sure if you're for that or not, right? But it puts people in contact with law enforcement, increases the number of times that they rub
That's not
against
the
them,
problem
that
with-
they
with
cause a
stop and
friction,
frisk.
right? And then that someone could get hurt.
No,
Like,
that's never been the problem with stop and frisk. The problem with stop and frisk is that, like, one, it was like inequitably like administered. Two, it automatically assumed like it robs people of their freedom in the sense that like now they don't have a right to just be able to say like, hey, I don't want this thing. Right? I mean, like to just walk down the street and like those kinds of things are problematic. Like those were the problems with stop and frisk.
what about cops in school? I know. I won't go down the cops in school.
Yeah, I think the stop and the cops in school problem was that one, like we see like how absolutely harmful it has been as it's been administered, as it's been administered, and it doesn't actually like it doesn't accomplish the goal that like that it was intended, right? Like the
So-
reason why we wanted cops in school was like the reason why there was such a great crazy uptick was because of like Columbine, and we recognize like, yo, this isn't actually effective.
What-
Like it doesn't
what-
seem like it accomplishes the goal.
But what difference of putting would that be, right? So there are cops who act badly, and who take their and who abuse their power, and end up taking that on minority kids, right? But like that
Sure.
shouldn't be a concern of ours when passing that law, right?
No, so it is a concern. It depends on like there's a threshold, right? Because it's not like just looking and saying an individual is going to do some terrible thing, and so therefore we're going to like work against it. It's when the problem becomes so widespread that we can't control it anymore. Like for example with policing or whatever. When something is so like ubiquitous that it starts to seem like it represents the system as a whole, is when we start making these different determinations. And I would say that's what happened with with the whole
Yeah, for the cops is cool.
Yeah,
So
with the cops.
it seems like you're setting this really high bar of saying that, okay, I recognize that individuals are going to get hurt, right? But like unless I can say that it is systemic, and maybe domestic violence might. I think domestic violence is pretty systemic,
It
but
might be
still,
systemic.
unless it has reached this point that I consider it to
Wait,
be
domestic
systemic, and
violence
other
can't
people
be
don't.
systemic.
Other people would disagree that even like cop violence against African Americans or African American children is even systemic to begin with, right? I would agree with you that it is, but other people wouldn't even agree with that much.
Yeah, but any
right?
person
Like,
who doesn't agree is crazy. But you don't think that domestic violence is systemic. That's not like it's not a system. It's something done by
It doesn't
individuals. What
affect
do you mean, how would it be
Fanatic, so he
systemic?
doesn't see it as systemic. That's look. Let's be very clear, gang. If it doesn't affect Fanatic, he don't give a shit. He could care fucking less. You could beat your wife all day. Fanatic does not care. If it doesn't affect Fanatic, Fanatic does not care. Let's be very clear. He's very easily demonstrated on this panel where his priorities lie, and that's fine. If he wants to own that, cool. But I just want to be very clear that we've shown that yes, there's very real risks. This happens. Domestic violence does exist, gang. People get beat all the time, right? And it just doesn't just happen to women. It happens to men too. But partners abuse their partners all the time. It's terrible. And we can see how these laws put partners at risk of this. And when there is no real good reason to have like the benefits do not outweigh this risk to any degree, right? And it's just very clear. So he can mute me all day, but he can't silence the truth, gang. He can't
Just has the
silence
truth.
this.
Thank you for that. Maybe it's I gone too far calling a system. Fair enough. But I think that the problem is at a huge scale. The violence against women by their partners. I think it's actually something huge. But anyway, and it's something predictable, right? And because it's a predictable issue, that we wouldn't want to put this law in place, because we know there are some individuals who are going to be doing this, right? Who are going to hurt their spouses because they decided a person desperately wants to keep their child, right? And this woman says no, right? Like I'm going to go through with this, right? Well, then what am I going to do to stop her, right? Some guys are going to decide to put their hands on this woman. So,
I mean, I guess that might happen. I don't know if that it would happen so frequently that we need to like change the system to like.
but we don't
bring
have
in,
the
like,
system in place.
Yeah, we don't have to change the system.
Yeah,
What
but
you're
I
advocating for is a change in
know
the
if that
system.
threat is like severe enough that we would probably be saying like, oh, we got to do something about it. I feel like that's, what do they call that? Cart before the horse, or whatever the freaking phrase is. It's just, that's not a. Again, I think it'll be the minority of people that do this, and we don't do something. We don't use the presence of something happening
Fanatic
to
doesn't
restrict
care
something
about
less
minorities.
pervasive, or else you would
But
have
it's
to
also-
argue, or else you would have to argue that we have to completely get rid of alcohol. Right? We cannot sell alcohol because some bad actors will drive drunk, so we can't sell alcohol. Right? Like, that doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
but-
We can't have guns.
The takes
at
are getting
all,
more
or
based by the
some
minute, to be honest.
or some bad people will just 100% use them in a properly way. We can't have motor vehicles, period, because some people will drive them into protest. Like, we don't make restrictions based off of bad actors.
We do
But if
have
something
restrictions
is
on who can
pervasive
drive
or
motor vehicles.
problematic
We do
enough,
have
then you
restrictions on
start
these things.
approaching a limit
We do
where you
have
feel you have to, like,
restrictions,
curtail
laws of the road.
something.
We
But
have
that's not-
laws to
that
govern
wouldn't be the
all
case
of this.
that sounds crazy.
And we have laws that make it safer, right? We have laws that mitigate risk. We have laws that make this all easier to have less harm. What we're arguing, and I know he can't hear me, but for the audience that matters here, like what he's arguing for is a law that will increase the risk, increase the harm with no real benefit. Because again, if he wants to push this culturally, cool, I'm with him, right? I'm actually for that. I'm actually for, hey, couples should make these decisions together. But when it comes to how the government acts, putting this law in place will put women at risk to a degree that just do not need to be.
You're absolutely right. Wick, this is a law that positively increases, unlike the points that Fnatic is making. This positively is a positive act that would increase the risk rather than like taking something away, right? Like banning something. This is saying like we're going to put a potential roadblock to you. We're going to put a potential detriment in your path if you go down this road. Some women, well, I guess Fnatic wouldn't care.
I find it funny that you have to be my translator here.
No, I'm
yeah,
not trying to be the translator. I'm just trying to engage with you.
No, I get it
yeah.
because it's like me to you to Fnatic to you. Yeah, it's fun. It's funny.
Okay, but yeah, fair enough. Let's go to Doobie.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I thought earlier what you said is that there's some women who might cheat on their partners and then use the fact that they don't need to report an abortion to get away with that, right? To abort the fucking bastard baby and get away with cheating on their husband, right? So it seems like you're also using the fact that there might be some bad actors that take advantage of the system to justify having the system. Not allowing people to get through without reporting an abortion.
No, but that wasn't. He was talking to me. I assume, right? Because
it sounded like you use that as a justification for requiring that they report abortions to the husband or whatever.
No, that's not what I'm doing. So like I'm saying that like, this thing can happen. This would be one of the motivations for why people would want this, right? Like this is one of the things, and we do make laws sometimes like to like curtail something like that a bad actor can do. But I think that's a very different thing than like just saying like in general, like we just want this law, right?
Okay. So like beyond that, like what would be the need for the law, basically?
Oh, for the reasons already stated, like that. Yeah, like people, like some people would feel like, oh, this
Stop
like
those
prevents
cheating women,
like
gang.
them from doing this thing. Some fathers would like to have a say so, whatever.
Okay.
Like there's plenty of times where someone could easily be like helping to like support or take care of a child, and then like discovering eventually that by the way that child is no longer there. She's been stringing you along, telling you that you're taking care of this kid that's not actually like that's been long gone. Like there's reasons.
Okay, yeah. So I feel like the last one is pointing to like a minority bad actors again, but the other two I think were more interesting. So the fact that the father might feel bad or violated in some way if his child were aborted without his knowledge, right? I think that's interesting. We can explore that. Or the next thing you said was he'd like to have a say. So when we're talking about like reporting the like pending abortion, do you think the father should be able to say no, this abortion is not going to happen, or would you stop at reporting?
I think that's a whole nother conversation. But sure, I'll go there with you since you asked the question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's pretty interesting. So like,
sure. I would say that absolutely yes. Like the father should have a say, especially if we're going to compel the father to be responsible for child support in the event that like she has the kid or whatever, right? I would say yeah, like that makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know why we wouldn't give him like some sort of say.
you, Chris, do you agree with that? Do you agree that the father should be able to, stop an abortion?
This is a very weird hypothetical for me, right? Because I've already said, like, I feel like my position is clear. I think abortions are bad. I think reducing them is good. So if we're playing around in a world where it's legal and a woman has this right on the basis that y'all have articulated, I don't see why the father would have that right. In the world like Malta that I envision, where it's like, no, this is actually necessary and we need to do it now. I think having a reporting requirement might actually like lead to deaths, in the sense that like this is clinically indicated, we need to induce now, and we're going to kick around and wait until we can let your husband know and make sure he gives the okay. That's not something I necessarily want to sign on for. But
No,
like,
just
again,
medical expediency. Make the medical expediency exception, so we don't have to go down that road.
Yeah. So like, again, my ideal is like, this should be like a collaborative decision making process in the case where like, you're gonna die if you carry this to term, or we need to do it right now. Yeah, make that decision with your partner if you're with them. But I'm not sure. I don't like. Again, like going into this is such a weird policy topic to me. Like all these proposals that people have given that are like trying to make men who impregnate women more responsible for that act, based amazing, do it, it's awesome. This I don't know, it's in such a weird liminal space for me. I don't know what to do with it.
Interesting. What about the pro-choice people? Like, do any of you guys think that like a man should be able to stop an abortion? If let's say it's not like, it's just an elective abortion, she just chooses to do it for reasons other than like health reasons or rape or whatever.
I don't think a man should be able to override the woman's authority and decision making in this case at all, under any circumstances.
Tiberius? I'm going to the men first, because I'm assuming we all have the most relevant opinions, of course.
No, that's fine. I had to unmute everything there for a second. I didn't think you were gonna call me. Dude, I'm gonna say it. There's a part of me that, like, up my moral core wants to say there's got to be an exception, but I can't find it. Like, just being logically consistent, being principally consistent, is that like, it sucks to just tell men it's like you gotta suck it up and deal with it. But I think when I ground down to it, I kind of have to. I fucking hate this question, dude. I really do, but there's just a little.
No, I agree. I think on like the arguments y'all have articulated, it makes no sense to me why you would require a man to have any input or even be notified, right? Like, again, like maybe Dewey's thing, like, yeah, if it's a low barrier, if she wants it, do it. But like, it makes no sense to me on the basis that like Prime and Dewey, for example, are arguing why you should be able to get an abortion, why the man should have any say at all.
I try to put myself,
and that grates against our moral sensibilities, Ty, and you know it.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I try to put myself in that position. It's like, all right, what if I'm finding out my kid's gonna be aborted? Like, I'm not gonna be fucking happy. I'm gonna be really not happy about that kind of thing. But it's also a level where I'm just like, I don't carry this child. I do not have to go through that process, which is, it might be 9 months, but it's a long 9 months, and there's a lot that can happen to mom. I think women need to have this one. Like, we can talk about if men are going to have the right to sign away their parental rights. Is it like a recourse for that? Like, which I find immoral as hell too. But like, I think you got to get this to the ladies. I don't know any way to make that like justified in my head.
Okay. Ginger and Genevieve, if you want to answer that question.
I'll let Genevieve go first.
Sure. I do believe I touched on it before when I said that I think when possible, as a best practice, if you can notify the father, that's fantastic. I don't think that it's necessary. I don't think that it should be required. And in that same vein, absolutely, under no circumstance should somebody get to make a decision for somebody else's medical care against their own wishes. So,
but we allow people. We allow people to make those kind of decisions all the time, though. Like, we give people power of attorney in other situations.
Right,
so it's not like
we give it to them.
Yeah, but so it's well, I mean, there's plenty of situations where a person can be like unconscious or in a coma, and then those decisions are made them like without them having consent, right? But like the basic concept that I'm saying is that one, it really just boiled down. If you value this thing that's in them as a life, and you feel like you helped to create that, not you feel like, and you helped to create that life, the idea that you would have no decisions on like what happens to that life, yet we're going to still hold you accountable if that life is created to be financially responsible for like the trajectory of that life, right? Like irrevocably. It sounds to me like, yeah, you probably should have some sort of say in that matter. I love Dave Chappelle's takes, well, all of his takes really, but I love specifically the take that he was talking about with "My Wallet, My Choice." When he made that statement, it really resonated with me. Like the idea that, like, yeah, look, okay, fine, if you want to have it, if you know have it your way, you want to say that you get to decide whether or not, like, people like it's only on you to decide whether or not you have your kid or not. Then good. Then maybe it should also be on uh then if that's the case, then holding men responsible sounds a little ridiculous. And then maybe if he doesn't have a say, then he doesn't have a financial responsibility. I love that. I
So
don't know how you
Doesn't
can
surprise me
simultaneously
that
say that he has no
you
responsibility in the other
Let
one.
Genevieve
it doesn't
respond.
surprise me at all that you either didn't hear, ignore, had muted any of my other points, because what you
Okay.
said was just super contrary to everything that I've been saying this entire panel. My argument in support of pro-choice is that it's not a life, it's not a child, up until viability. So if
Yeah, and
someone
that's what we're
brings out
debating.
an
I think it
abortion
is.
early,
I
then
think it
Let
is.
it's
her
not
finish. Let her
protecting
finish,
a life.
please.
So that's our point of contention, of course, is that we don't agree where life starts. However, based on my belief that life does not start at conception and a fetus does not have all of the same rights as a fully fledged human being that has been birthed, then there's no split of child custody at that point. At that point, the situation is there is a pregnancy that is happening, and the person who is experiencing that pregnancy is going to be the one who's going to decide whether or not they want to go forward with it.
Go ahead,
So,
Fanatic, Fanatic, if you want to respond to.
I
what
was
she
just
said.
saying, yeah, that is our contention, and I wasn't like trying to argue it specifically from your perspective. I don't know why you'd be so egotistical as to assume I would do that. I haven't granted you that the life that it's not a life. That's my position. I think it is a life, and so obviously from my position, which I was expressing to you, then yeah, it seems like that somebody like if a man is responsible partially for creating that life, then he should probably have some say, and especially if he's going to be responsible financially for dealing with that life. I don't get how we could ever defend the notion you are financially responsible now 100% when this kid is born, but you have no say so in like actually like fighting for this kid to actually live. It sounds crazy to me. I don't know how we get there.
So again, I don't know if you forgot that we literally had this very same conversation that we just screamed at each other about like half an hour ago, where I said that if you truly don't want to be a parent, you can go to court, you can get a lawyer, you can advocate to relinquish your rights, and you choose to believe that's not an option. Again,
Oh,
that's
no.
fine, but
I'm
that's where my
sorry.
perspective comes from.
Okay, I'm not choosing to believe that. I'm sorry. It's just that's what Google showed me. Can you link me literally any source online right now that suggests that you can terminate your parental rights in order to get out of child support? Can you link me any source anywhere that says anything remotely close to that?
I don't keep my parents' legal records.
No, I'm not
open
talking
in
about your
case
parents. I
wanna
don't care about
show
your anecdote.
people,
Can you find
if
me
I'm lying
anything
or not.
online? I can find you things that say the otherwise online right now. I'm asking you. I'm not asking you about your personal story that your parents lied to
But
you
that's
about
an
and that you
example
believe.
of it
I'm
happening.
asking you. No. I don't care about your personal example because I can't be aware of that. You could just be a liar because I'm saying Google told me the complete opposite, and everything I've always known has been the complete opposite. I'm not going to believe your story over like literal Google. So I'm asking you, can you find a single source from anywhere? I don't care how irreputable they are. Any source that says anything remotely close to supporting what you're talking about? Or are you literally making that up off the top of your head and then saying that will happen to me, so therefore I know that it's true? Anywhere. Literally anything.
Do you want me to answer you, or are you going to keep screaming over me?
Are you going to find the source?
Genevieve, please.
So when I'm in a panel, I actually like to participate in it, and I'm not going to go on a wild goose chase right now for legal documents. However, if it's so important to you, then give me 24 hours and I will provide you with the documentation.
Perfect.
But instead, right now, today, I'm participating in a panel with my friend Prime here, and I would like to be present for it.
Perfect. So I'll wait that 24 hours, and then when you
do
can't
that.
find,
You do
okay, I
that.
will. And when you can't find that thing, would you please come back to me and say, "Hey, yeah, I guess you were right. I was lying." Or I'm sorry,
I'm
you don't have to
not
say you
lying.
were
So if
lying.
you want to go
You
ahead
can
and
say
let
you
me
were
know
right.
that
It
you're
doesn't
ignorant and
exist.
uneducated and you don't understand all legal parameters,
I'm
then you
ignorant.
can go ahead and
I'm
take that out of
ignorant.
this
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
I'm
this will
sorry,
be
are you
fun.
a lawyer? Do you know every single legal case that has ever been
I don't
tried?
have to. All I just have to know is Google, where it just
Oh
says
yeah, 'cause
parental
Google is
rights cannot be
always
terminated
correct.
by a parent who
Google
simply
is
wants to avoid paying
always
child support
correct.
and is not being adopted by another parent. And is not being adopted by another parent. That's what I
Google
was
is
saying earlier.
not a reliable source. I want you to tell me what sources you're finding that are actual legal representative cases of this.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
just fine. I can't wait for you to find it. That's all right. I'll
I
wait.
know. I know. Wick has a direct response, and we'll go to Ginger.
Certainly. So this isn't exactly what he wanted, but it was Google. So if you want a more in-depth thing, it does talk about just different. You look at, like, state laws are different on this, right? Like, so you'll have to look up in your state what their laws are regarding this kind of thing. But I don't know where you live. I don't care. At the end of the day, though, this idea that we have to, like, we allow people to make medical decisions for other people all the time. Not really. Like, if someone has a do not resuscitate on file, like if they have positively said, I do not want to be resuscitated, in most states, as far as I'm aware, in most cases, they don't allow family members to override that, right? Like, so if the woman's unconscious, I guess, and the doctor's like, we need to get this, we need someone to say whether we can abort this child because there's a medical issue, right? Then maybe the father could decide. Cool, right? But if the woman's able to express her wishes in this case, like, obviously we should follow them. She's the one that's going to be most directly affected. The father is going to be affected too. I'm not discounting that at all. But the woman is the one who is going to have the brunt of the issue, right? And so that at the end of the day, someone has to make a decision. Someone has to be ultimately responsible if there's a disagreement on that. And ultimately, it's the woman. If you want to advocate that it should be easier for, or that men shouldn't have to pay as much in certain cases, okay, we can have that conversation. I'd probably come more to fanatic side a little bit in certain cases, right? But at the end of the day, we're not talking about that as much as we are talking about abortion, right? That's the key here. Should a man, right, be able to force his will on a woman in either direction, whether to abort or to keep? And I think that is just not the case. We should not be able to force that on women.
Okay. Ginger.
Sorry. I mean, I'm kind of in the same place that I was before. I feel like in most cases it's just morally right to like at least acknowledge the fact that the man has a right to know whether or not he's having a baby or not. In most cases. But I don't think that it's necessary for it to be like illegal not to. I just have a very like it's a lackluster response to this because it's like I'm just not. I would tell them regardless because I feel like that's my duty to them regardless of whether it's my body or not. I feel like they have the right to at least know.
Oh, thank you for that. All right. I'm looking into Fanatic. I was actually trying to look into the a parental rights termination thing as well. And it's not clear. I'm still digging into it, but I'm not quite sure. But
I mean, it feels like kind of a red herring unless what we're arguing is, yes, if we take this line on abortion, we should also support the existence of laws that allow you to terminate your parental rights specifically because you don't want to pay child support, right? Because the links that people are giving in chat, the states that I've seen so far, yes, there are cases where you can request to terminate them, but one of those reasons cannot be like, I just don't want to pay child support. That's what I've seen so far. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, right? So if what we're saying is this is like the logical outcome, one, women need to be able to do this without talking to the parent or to the father, and two, the father needs to be able to say, great, if you're going to do that, or if you're not going to do that, I just don't want anything to do with this child and I don't owe you child support. If that's what we're arguing, fine. If otherwise it's just like we're going down a track we don't really need to. I don't know.
So do you think that for the people who are pro-abortion, do you think this is something that children should have to notify their parents?
Oh yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
not
think.
just because you want to protect the child or anything crazy like that. I'd say that the reason is because like you have to recognize that like if a child is having sex such that it's irresponsibly such that they need to be having an abortion, then it probably like then that means that they should notify their parents so that their parents can like actually be abreast of what's going on to prevent more of these things. Because if you're getting pregnant and being irresponsible enough to have abortion, that means you're not having unprotected sex, meaning that like yeah, you probably need to like something needs to be done to prevent this from happening even more. So parents need to keep a tighter lookout for their kids. Maybe they can be contracting STDs, which a lot of young people are, and all of those things. It just seems like you would probably need to get a good, firm
Your parent might
grasp
need
on
to
what your kid is doing.
get out the switch and beat the shit out of you.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that might be a thing.
We are going. Oh yeah, we're going to have a fight about that. All right, let's go to Ginger, then Wick.
I think that's kind of a slippery slope. I feel like most parents will want to know just because they feel like they know what's best for the child, which is normally the case. There are the occasions where so a quick little segue, I promise it'll be a few seconds. I was really unhealthy and I had to go to this like Christian ranch place in Arkansas. Okay. And it was also housing women or teenagers who were pregnant, where their Christian parents sent them to this camp where we were all in a house together, and these girls were being told by their parents that they were going to this place to have the baby, and then they could decide whether or not they chose to raise them or not. But while they were at this place, all of the counselors and the people that were involved in this camp or whatever decided to tell the kids that if they gave birth to the child and they kept it, that within a year the child would be dead, and that they wouldn't know how to take care of this child, and they needed to give it up for adoption. The only reason they were there was because their parents wouldn't let them get an abortion. So instead of let society around them know that, hey, my child's done this, they sent their child off to have their entire pregnancy completely segregated from their family and friends to give up this baby for adoption.
So it's like an Irish laundry. But doesn't that go against? So I'm a little confused at your position here. So maybe you can clear it up for me. You said before that parents know best, so they should be notified.
No.
But okay.
No, I'm saying the majority of like non-religious people are going to try. I hate to say this because it sounds like I'm against religion, which I'm completely not. But I feel like a hard stance would be for religious people, like especially Catholics who don't believe in abortion or whatever. They tend to send their kids off, but there are a lot of parents out there that are willing to help their child out.
Yeah, but if you require notification, then those bad parents will also know, right?
Yeah, I get that, and like I that's why it's like for me it's that's why I said in the middle, like it's a catch-22.
I mean, it doesn't have to be, right? We could just not inform at all. Then we won't have that problem.
I feel like it's a scary thing to just let kids deal with it on their own.
Well, I mean, but
like I'm not saying that they should, but I'm just torn between it.
Why is it? What's scary about
it? Because they might not necessarily know where to go to get the best treatment.
Well, I mean, they're at an abortion care services, like they've got to an abortion provider, and then now the abortion provider is being told, "Oh, you're a minor? Okay, well, I have to inform your parents." So they're already there.
Yeah, and that's where I don't think that it should be legalized that the parents should have to know, but I also feel like it's just it can also be scary. That's
Okay.
You're a
kind of
It can be
minor.
very scary because Planned
you're le-
Parenthood in some states has actually been sued for covering up child sex trafficking rings for this exact thing, for not following
Sorry.
mandatory reporter requirements and
not just
not
that.
notifying anyone when 14-year-olds were getting abortions and their pimps were literally there saying, I'm sex trafficking them. How can I cover this up most effectively? They've been sued for this. So, like, yes, it's a very scary thing.
Not only that, then you also have to recognize that there's plenty of children. Like, obviously these are minors, so we already like know that they don't have enough. Since they're not adults, then we don't give them. We don't say that they're allowed to have the same kind of autonomy. Like, we recognize that they don't have the best information. They don't have fully developed brains. We obviously trust their parents. Like, that's why their parents are their guardians legally. So then the idea that they can like make the best medical decisions is crazy. The idea that they couldn't be influenced or like pressured into having abortions against their will, which could be like scarring traumatically for them. Like, if maybe the boy feels like, yo, I don't want to take care of this kid, and it's a 15-year-old girl, she gets pregnant, and he feels like, I don't want this kid. He can pressure her into these kinds of things. We don't know what the duress that they could be into in order to make these sorts of decisions. And again, again, if a child is having like unprotected sex irresponsibly, then obviously, and I would say that any child having unprotected sex, any child getting pregnant, something irresponsible had to have happened. And so I would say then, yeah, parents need to be alerted, because then that means that that's indicative of other problems happening, right? And so then parents need to be able to start like doing things in order to prevent that. I'm aware of people who have gotten pregnant at very young ages, 15 years old, and then in a response, the mother said, "Oh, we won't be having child pregnancies in this house," so they got that child an IUD in order to make sure that child wouldn't be continuing to have that whatever. Child ended up getting an abortion, which is whatever. But my point being, so parents can start making more informed decisions to prevent their children from being derailed. The whole reason why you're fighting for abortion agency in the first place is because you guys think that sometimes it can be really economically devastating. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, oh, it'd be so economically devastating, but parents shouldn't be able to safeguard against these things with IUDs or other sorts of contraceptive like measures. So yeah,
I can definitely have it both ways, but I'll give it to Wicca up first, then Ty.
Oh yeah. So, like, if we're
Well, don't
worried
let him
about
talk after me. He
parents
can't even
being
engage.
pressured right into things, like if we're worried about kids, I should say, being pressured by their parents into things, this cuts both ways. Thing, there are plenty of parents who would definitely pressure, emotionally scarring their kid, right? Like if we're worried about that, there's plenty of parents who would pressure their children into getting an abortion against their will, which is horrific as well. Like if a child gets pregnant and doesn't want an abortion, wants to keep that child, the parent should not be able to pressure them to do so. It's the parent, like the one who is going to be affected by this the most. I'm not saying the parents aren't going to be affected too. Obviously they are, but the one who's going to be affected by this the most is the child. And the government, the U.S. government specifically, is very, very bad at protecting our kids, right? Not only do we have the top, but look at CPA and how terrible that has been, snatching children from their homes because their parents are quote unquote abusive when all they are is poor, right? In a lot of cases, and then selling them, literally selling them to other families. Okay, we know this happens. We know that this is a terrible thing, right? Like this is a terrible thing. So why would we want parents to be able to pressure their child into having an abortion? Well, ask Fanatic that. Since his brain ain't fully developed yet. Ask Fanatic why he's okay with parents being able to pressure.
It's very simple.
Why should a parent be able to pressure their child into having an abortion?
I totally agree. Can you not hear me? If you don't have the resources to take care of a child, you should not have a child. That's like the baseline, right? But beyond that, these are like underage people we're talking about. Their brains are not fully developed. They can't make decisions on their own. They're under the guardianship of their parents. So absolutely, the parents should be able to pressure them to get an abortion, right? And further, reporting to the parent is important because the fact that this kid is pregnant in the first place might be indicative that of them being like molested. Might point to some other neglect by the parents themselves, right? So the state should actually absolutely look into this. Why is this kid sexually active? Why don't the parents know about it? And like I don't understand why you're you're twisting yourself into like circles to say, hey,
Not
we need
a-
to
not a
protect the
simple.
kids from the parents
Pretty
when
straight
the
line.
kids are pregnant, right? When we know everything that comes from that. You look at every fucking statistic across the board. If you have a kid, when you're a kid, your life and the kid's life is probably not going to be very good, right? Your kid's probably going to end up in prison, right? You're probably going to be poor for the rest of your fucking life. This is a bad life path that they're on. So yeah, they should absolutely be helped to get off of it.
But that's the thing. People should be able to make bad decisions.
Not
Children,
kids.
yes.
Kids
Children
cannot
even
consent
too.
to sex
Ju-
with an adult or
I
to having another
agree.
baby.
I agree. But if a
No,
child,
you don't.
yeah, what are you talking?
You're telling
about?
me that
If a
this kid
child
can not
gets
only consent to
pregnant-
sex, right? But then can consent to the consequences of sex, which is having a child.
But they can't consent to sex.
Yeah, within
with
a
an
certain
adult.
age range. Yeah,
With who?
Not with an adult.
Oh, that's
With-
the problem.
with
So if there's no
children.
requirement to report, right? How do we know this kid isn't having sex with an adult?
What
do you have to
How
do
would
with
you
the
know
risks-
generally? Right?
the
Like,
risks
generally,
greater.
you wouldn't know. Like in a rare cases where they're going to have a baby and then they decide they're going to make an abortion in secret. Yeah, I guess that'd be the one time maybe you could find out. But even then, they could lie about who the father was. So like this wouldn't solve that problem.
Yeah,
Well, it'd solve the problem in that even if you were to like report it to the parents, right, and not have the state look into it, and the state should definitely look into it and make sure that the home's a safe home for the kid, right? But even if you weren't going to take that step because you just hate children, if it was just reporting to the parents, right, the parents could look into it themselves. Hey, who's your little boyfriend who isn't using protection? Why are you sexually active before you know to use protection? All these things, right? Why are you putting yourself in this extremely dangerous position that's going to fuck up your entire life? This is the responsibility of parents to take care of their child, right? And it seems like you want to strip that from these
if a
children.
17-year-old gets pregnant and wants to keep the child, regardless of the circumstances, if the mother, the one having the baby, wants to keep the child, they should be able to keep the child, and the parent should not be allowed to put undue pressure. And if the child fears that the parents will put undue pressure, we should err on the side of the child. Are there
Why?
risks to it? Yes, but the risks of notifying parents, I think, outweigh it. Right?
Why? Well,
Be-
it
because-
seems
I
like
wanna
you
fight.
just
I wanna
assume.
turn
I don't know
Connor.
what your relationship. I mean, my relationship with my parents is like pretty fucked, right? So maybe yours is too. And this way, you're like allergic to notifying parents, right? But I don't think most parents are like fucking monsters who they hear that their daughter's pregnant are gonna beat the shit out of her and lock her in a closet for the rest of her life. They're probably gonna try to help her and try to figure out what the best option is, right? Because they love their fucking kid. Right. So I
But
don't.
we don't
or
have
I
to
don't
protect the
understand-
children who are in stable homes, right? Like this law isn't going to be
Why?
because if they're in stable homes with loving parents, generally they'll feel comfortable
Kids in
enough to
stable
share.
homes don't
right?
have don't have
they're gonna have
unprotected sex that they're ashamed of.
They're going to have problems, but ideally, yes, that the parents should feel the kids and the parents should have a relationship comfortable where they're open and communicative. But we know that this isn't the case all the time, and so again, when we make it mandatory for the state, right, to inform parents of medical of something like this, again, it just leads to some really bad issues where the parents have an amount of force and coercive force that they can place on the child to do one of two things, right? To either get an abortion or not get an abortion. In both cases, that pressure should not be there.
Let's go to Ty, and then we'll get back to this because this is an interesting fight.
Well, the problem is I'm gonna like pick up on that fight because I will split a hair here. So I want to make two caveats to make it very clear where I stand on this one. Number one is that I'm going into this assuming that parents are going to be more pro-choice than the children. The reason why is because of what Doobie said is that children are going to be more likely to want the abortion because they know that's a lifelong consequence. They are far more likely to be poor, whatever. I'm going to just assume that's all true. Okay, so I'm going to assume that the parents are actually going to be more pro-life because they might be able to take care of that child in the absence of their one child already having to check out. So I actually 1000% agree with like the more pro-life crowd on this one out of the gate, basically because I don't trust kids to make this level of decision. I'm one of those guys. It's like, yeah, I think we need to rescind the voting voting age, excuse me, back to 21. I think that we give some stupid responsibilities to people at like 16 or 18 when they really shouldn't have it, and we're completely flipped off. But that was a discussion we had on this very panel about a year ago about how we raise kids and when do we let them do certain things. I don't think you're going to keep teenagers from sex, but I definitely think that we need to be far more proactive in how people use their bodily autonomy. And so I'll put it this way, I kind of expect people who are about 16 to be engaging with that. I kind of just think that's normal at this point. So we need to coach them through that. But as far as having abortion, I don't think they're really morally qualified to have that until about 21. So I know that's a big flag to stick in the ground, but that's where I'm at.
What if we simply added the caveat that, like, if the provider, and which is something we already do in regular medical services, if the provider feels that this child is experiencing child abuse, then there is some sort of like notification to the state, like state authorities. So like
I'm
just
100% okay with that, actually.
yeah. So
I'm okay with that.
rather than notification, like, because that's the thing that people seem to be wanting to protect against, right? Like, okay, what if they're being abused by an adult? All right, so I'm the provider. I have reason to believe this. Then I notify the states, and someone can get involved in this, rather than making some automatic notification to parents who could be the abusers themselves, right? Or who could do what Ginger was talking about and send their kid off to some Christian nut house and indoctrinate them, or whatever the fuck they do in those places, right? Like hide their child away from the world because of their shame and whatever the fuck, right? Instead of doing things like that, they just don't notify them, and instead only trigger it for abuse. Oh, I guess I win. All right, great, thanks. That solves it.
Well, I just want to be clear that the only thing
from the gate.
No.
Sorry,
I'm sorry. What was the question? I was dealing with something really funny on my server.
This is why you need a real cam, Doobie. A real cam.
No,
But anyway,
okay. Just really quickly. So I banned some kid for sending Jewish people videos of Jews being like killed and shit. And then someone else on the server doxed him, sent the like screenshots to his mom, and he was complaining that they told his mom that he was sending that kind of shit around on the internet. And it's really funny. So I've just been making fun of.
Why do you do this to us, Doobie? Why?
So I was saying,
okay, so I was distracted. What was the thing?
I was saying, why don't we add simple caveat that if a provider, a medical provider, feels that the child is being abused, that they should get have state intervention, right? So instead of having a blanket parental notification, we just say if the provider suspects abuse, then do that, and which is always the case for all other medical services. That's already the case. So
because it's not just about abuse.
I'm going to sign off on that one. I agree with that, but also, like, even people in my chat, which I hardly ever bring chat in this, are telling me that's already a thing. So I'm just not an expert. I'm not going to say that I know, but I could totally believe that's probably already a thing.
I was going to say that it absolutely is a thing. Anytime there's any suspected abuse, like almost all those people are mandated reporters. Like a teacher is a mandated reporter if they believe that abuse is happening. At least in the state of California, a therapist the same way. Police officers, obviously, like whatever. Like medical professionals, like a doctor, if they are suspicious of abuse, they have to like report to child. Anything involving like pediatrics, like that's like kind of a rule. So
exactly. So this is what I was saying. We already have this, and if that's in place, then I think it takes out at least one of the things you guys were talking about. You're talking about, well, what if this child is being abused by some adult? Well, then we have something. We have a mandatory reporting. So that part we don't necessarily have to worry about.
Sure, but there's not necessarily going to be suspicion of that, right? Like there's not always something where you can indicate that this is what's happening.
And if you notify the parent, they're not necessarily going to know. Like the parent gets involved, right? The child is not necessarily going to tell them that the person they had sex with was an adult, right? Same thing.
Sure. No, sure. While the child's not necessarily going to tell them, then the parents can start becoming suspicious. Or if the parent is aware of like their child, right, like and like who they've been leaving their child with, then they can become more suspicious, and they can start like trying to make a determination of, oh, I bet you it's so and so that's over here getting inside our kid, right? Like they're gonna have more insight, so it would make the most sense. Like
they didn't know that the kid was having sex to begin with, and now their kid is pregnant. And now they're necessarily going to have more insight. Like, so I guess I disagree. The heart of this is that I disagree that a child can't make this decision. That these kids, it's so like one thing. If a child's below a certain age, right? Well, then any sex that they have is automatically not consenting, and that would trigger that state involvement in the first place, right? So like if a 12-year-old shows up, well, 12-year-olds can't consent to sex, right? So then we're talking about like 16 or 15-year-olds, like depending on the state, I guess, right? So like a 16-year-old coming in, yes, I believe a 16-year-old can make that decision for themselves. And that they might have a good reason to fear the reaction of their parents, right? Not just because they're going to get in trouble, because their parents will react in an abusive manner.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like yeah, the children can, if a 16-year-old should be able to indicate that their parent is going to be abusive, at which point then maybe that could like get rid of some of the requirements or whatever, or can at least give them cause them to have some sort of CPS person like come and investigate to figure out what's happening. But like ultimately, I'm just gonna always argue that you shouldn't be stripping parents of that you shouldn't be stripping parents of the right to like their kids, like to know what's going on with their children. And again, like maybe the parent might not have known that somebody was going like that somebody like that their child was having sex, because maybe the parent was leaving the family with like leaving them with like a trusted family member who was actually diddling their kid. So then in that case, if that happens, then a parent would like want to know this kind of information, because then the parent gets to decide, oh hey, like now that I know this, like I won't leave them with this kid, or now I'll keep a more watchful eye so I can be more investigative. But like the idea that you just no, it doesn't matter, you don't need to know, you don't have any rights, it just sounds crazy to me. It sounds weird.
So at the end of the day, really, it comes down
This
to
nigga Wick gonna talk
who
after I
is
talk every
impacted
time.
most, who has to bear the brunt of the decision. And yes, parents should like children do not have the same rights as adults, and for a very good reason, right? But we're talking 15, 16, 17, 100%. The child in that case should be the only one making that decision. And we don't want these negative consequences that come with informing them either way, right? Because again, the
Wait, so
force,
Wick,
right?
if this
Go
like
ahead.
a 13, 14, 15-year-old, would you be okay with informing the parents then?
Like when we're talking like 12 and
12-year-old?
younger, yeah, 100%.
Okay,
I
like
can't draw you
13,
a line
14,
in the sand
15.
here with a specific day, like 13 years and 5 months and 6 days and 3 hours and
Why would
22
you do
minutes.
12 and not 13?
Hmm?
Why
Well,
do 12 and not
15,
13?
15, 16, 17 is age, as I said.
Wait, hold on, but
14,
we're talking
13,
about like
12,
who's going to bear the brunt
okay,
of this
maybe.
child, right? Or the abortion. But if the parents are raising this child and they're the legal guardians, and this child is engaging in activity that is leading them to such risky situations, they need to get an abortion, and they're hiding this from their parents. Like, it seems like the parents should know about this, right, to protect their kid.
Again, yes, they should, right? But when it comes down to laws, right, to what we mandate by law, and if the state does not do this, they get in trouble. I think, again, 15, 16, 17, I'm going to be very clear with those ages, 15, 16, 17, right? They should absolutely not be informing mandatorily, right? I think
Yeah,
the
that's just
child
insane.
should be able to make the decision.
Yeah, I just it's insane. I don't understand.
Well,
You wouldn't
again,
make it
it's because they're
mandatory.
going to have to
Like,
bear the
what about
brunt of
other
the
medical
decision.
procedures? Like, what other medical procedures are you okay with them doing to 15-year-olds that without the parents' like consent or knowledge?
Again, like this is specifically when it comes to abortion, because we know it's not just a medical procedure, but it is something that has a whole host of complications, right? Like, look, when it comes to
So did
elective
lots of other medical
surgeries, when it
procedures.
comes to all these things, right? That's a different conversation. Abortion, like choosing to carry a child into this world, should, like, again, the ultimate decision maker should be the person
I'm
who is
not
bearing the
disagreeing
child.
with you, right?
Mhm.
But I'm saying that the parents should be informed as to what their kid is doing, right? So like I'm not saying that they should be the parents' decision whether or not that they they go through with the abortion. I'm looking for why they shouldn't be informed at all.
Parents have coercive power, right? Like you're saying that this shouldn't be the decision, but parents have coercive powers. If the child was doing this under, without their parents' knowledge, that it might be the case that the child understands that if they do, then they're going to get pressured. If anyone can pressure a child to not go through this procedure, it would be a parent, right?
Yeah, but again, we understand that most of the country, Republicans and Democrats, favor abortion in some cases, right? And I think most people, if you're dealing with like a 15-year-old that's pregnant,
We're
right?
we're not talking about them though, right?
You're
Uh,
talking about
that's
the slim minority that would want that's like
the
Eucharist.
semi-minority. I'm
abortion.
talking about the fucking tens of thousands of people who are cheering, right? Like Eucharist, like Fanatic, who are cheering that this decision happened in the first place. Yeah, I'm talking about those people.
No, I don't
I'm
think
saying
Fanatic
that-
would be in favor of. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong. Fanatic, if you had like a daughter, right, that got pregnant at 15 years old, would you not be in favor of her getting an abortion?
No, I would not be in favor of her getting an abortion.
Oh
no.
God.
I would
See, these are the people I'm talking about.
God damn
No,
it.
if the kid understands. Kids aren't
Fanatic
dumb.
would physically stop. If Fanatic
why-
can't hear me because
No,
he can't hear base
no.
content, but to Doobie,
Why
Fanatic
would
is
she
the
need
type
to
of
get an
person
abortion?
who would physically
Why?
prevent their child from being able to.
Yeah, so it's exactly what I'm talking about. There among the group of people who would keep their who would have an issue with it. Kids understand this, right? They understand their parents are stupidly religious, and that their dumbass beliefs are going to get in the way. So because of that, they're like, okay, well, I got to do this myself. It's up to me to handle this, right? Or again, my parents' fictional mythical characters will get in their head and tell them, no, I got to keep this baby when I absolutely cannot do this, right? Or because of their beliefs, they're going to be physically abusive to me. It's all a possibility, all of that. So because of those kids, right? That's why you put the law in place. Same thing with the father unification, right? Because of where that could lead to. I guess that answers your question.
won
Doobie.
We
again.
win,
Sorry,
gang.
was that to me?
Wick wins
it was,
again.
Doobie, that was to you, obviously. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So this is gonna be like, what's the word I'm looking for? One of the rare cases, right, where I'm gonna have to side with the religious people. Unfortunately, even though there are some people out there who would say, no abortion, even if you're 14, 15 years old, right, and you're not ready to have a kid. Well, fuck. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be the minority in the country, and I wouldn't want to damage all the other parents in the country who might have children who are sexually active or being molested or whatever else without their knowledge, that are getting themselves into risky positions. Right. So yeah, it sucks, but hey, shit happens. And I think if those parents force their kids to go through with that pregnancy, well, hopefully they learn a lesson from it. Okay.
If they survive.
The parents are the legal guardians. If this is a decision that's made, I don't think these kids know what's best for themselves. It's up to the parents to understand what's best for them. So if that's what the parents decide, fuck them.
Ty, go ahead. Doobie just said something terrible. Go ahead.
Well, here's the problem. I agree with
Madam Genevieve needs to be dragged back in, I think.
Yeah, I mean, she's not in the. She's AFK.
She's in the AFK. Yeah.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, so I largely agree with Doobie here, but for a bit of a different context, is that I'm going to assume that the parents are pro-life, but I'm going to assume just out of the gate that those parents are not going to be like, oh, you're going to be raising this child. I assume that 9 times out of 10 or even more, that those parents are going to be taking the responsibility of those child onto themselves. Now, if that is a flawed assumption, somebody please throw me some data at that one. I hope humanity isn't that shit, but honestly, I can deal with that because in my mind, those parents are just going to take up that mantle, and I can live with that. But if they're not going to, then we have a very different conversation.
Like I think the data we can show you is the amount of parents who don't take care of their own children, right? And like, why are we to assume that they're going to be taking care of like their children's children the same way? I mean, this is a huge problem. Like, yes, obviously the majority of parents are good. The majority of parents are going to step up and take action. But what this law does, like what a law like this would do to force reporting, is put the children under undue pressure and sometimes not as much danger. And we don't want that to happen. We want to make the decision as pressureless as possible. Obviously, we can't get to 100%, but we can get closer. And again, at the end of the day, it's the person carrying the child who has the ultimate choice. Either way.
Wild.
Wait. Just let me get this real quick, Euchers. So this is the thing. I'm probably not going to agree with you on this, Wick, because I get where you're coming from, and that's one of your big moral cores is like coercion and whatnot. That's a very left-wing thing. I'm not a left-winger in that regard. I very much am in form of hierarchy. Like, I respect that people who are parents, elders, that kind of thing, are going to having their coercion needs to be there. I think that actually helps society. And if you don't agree, I totally get it. I'm not going to fight that. But on the other side of that is that I kind of want that. I think that does help. So for me, putting that into the majority of parents' hand is still a net win, even if it's going to have maybe a bad outcome here and there. Because that's the gremlin effect in a nutshell. Is you're always going to have some asshole trying to ruin your shit. What's the threshold where people are ruining it to the point where you're like, all right, we need to roll this back. And that's a whole other conversation. So thank you, Chris. Go for it.
No, I agree, and I was just going to say, I think in what you've just described, Wick, you're completely like there's an assumption that completely discounts the other possible harms in this world where we have no notification process, which is you assume this happy paradise where a 15, 16, 17-year-old coming in is making this decision of their own volition, and their rapist or their pimp is not sitting in the lobby coercing them to do this. So like I don't understand this world where you're like, no, the better outcome is I think we can all agree that if you accept your presuppositions about abortion and what it is and when it's desirable, we can all agree it would be better if these people who are, relatively close to the age of majority were able to make this decision freely and independently as autonomous individuals. I just don't think you're accounting for the ways that there's just as much harm introduced by not requiring that anybody be notified as by requiring that somebody be notified.
So just to address that, like, look, I don't think there's it's not equal harms here. I acknowledge what you say is a thing, right? I acknowledge that it happens. I just think that it doesn't happen to the extent that it if we required reporting, like I think that we would be putting much more pressure out there, doing
so
much
of the very
more
small
harm,
number
right?
of people who are procuring abortions at say 15 or 16, of that number of people, you think the far outside greater number of them are procuring them in a situation where they would be harmed if their parents knew and would not have an equal or greater harm if we just tell nobody that this 15, 16, 17-year-old is pregnant and seeking an abortion? You're convinced of that?
Sure.
Okay.
I think it's
I think that's utter bullshit.
harm
There's no evidence for
as
that.
well.
Okay, you're fine.
Well, I don't think you have evidence otherwise. Can you show me?
I have evidence of lawsuits against Planned Parenthood, like helping sex trafficking rings of underage children. I think there's that evidence. Yeah, there's real harm that we see in that.
Yeah, but the assertion you made wasn't that it would be equal harm or anything. You said that the assertion you made, or at least you wanted me to address, is where the harm lies and where we think the majority of harm lies. So if you could show me data that shows that there would be more of the pimps, et cetera, than parents being really shitty to their children, right? And pressuring them either to be aborted or to get an abortion.
Okay, if you could show me evidence that parents are going to be really shitty to their children in those situations more often than this is going to be a case where they're sleeping with an abuser who is pressuring them to get an abortion to cover up for the fact that they're fucking a child, then show me that evidence. Yeah, so the burden is on you.
So what you're saying is neither of us have evidence.
Yeah, and so you're making a bold claim and I'm making a bold claim and you're saying yours is self-evident. I'm saying it's not. Wick, I love you. I'm sorry, I'm getting really spicy, but I think you're presenting it as like way more obvious than it actually is.
Oh, okay. Again, earlier in the conversation, I said these are not simple issues, right? These are very complex issues. I don't think you're a bad person for disagreeing with me. I'm just being asked why I'm taking this stance, and this is why. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just asking you to think of the variety of circumstances under which a person of that age might be procuring an abortion. Think of the types of people somebody of that age might be sleeping with, and think of how many of them might be pressuring them to get an abortion to cover up for the fact that they're sleeping with someone of that age. And consider the world that we're introducing if you say, nope, it's fine, and you cannot be held liable if you notify no one if a child comes into you've called them a child several times, right? If a child comes into your clinic in this situation and says, I would like an abortion, please, and you get no sign off from anyone else on that. Just think of that world and the kind of evidence we're destroying, okay?
Doopy, you were trying to say something?
I just agree with Eucharist. Everything. I want Eucharist to be more spicy. That's what I was saying.
I would love for you.
I think he absolutely deserves to be, because what you guys are suggesting is really weird.
I don't understand, Doopy. So my question was going to be to you, that considering everything you said previously about a woman's right to choose, right, and her body and all that stuff, right? Why does that not extend to a 17-year-old? Right? That why doesn't she have just as much agency over her own body?
I consider 17-year-olds to be children.
Yeah,
Right?
I get that. I understand.
Yeah, so this is
But-
that's why I don't think that a 17-year-old can consent to sex with like a 25-year-old.
No, I didn't say that. No, in fact, I've already pushed back against that. I'm talking about sex between kids, right? So like we're not talking about illegal sex. The sex you're talking about is already illegal and they can't consent to that. The law is already quite clear about that, and I agree. But 17-year-old with her 17-year-old boyfriend, shit gets wild as it usually does, and now she's looking to have an abortion. Why can't she have that? Why can't she make that decision as well?
Well, because like I said earlier, this is somebody who is is under the legal guardianship of their parent, right? And I'm assuming the 17-year-old boyfriend is also under the legal guardianship of their parent, right? So if these children are engaging in such risky behavior that the little girl needs to go out and get an abortion, right? And we know how risky that can be, even when it goes well, right? We know how terrible that is. So she needs to go out and get an abortion because they're engaging in risky behavior. Well, hold on. Abortions aren't like
Abortions
it's not
are
like
safer
getting
than birth.
It's sure, but it's not like getting it like your teeth cleaned or something, right? There are risks associated with it.
Yeah, there are risks with everything.
It isn't a fun process to get an abortion. Right?
And she's deciding to make that decision.
Yeah, of course.
But she
as a child.
Fun.
Yeah, she's deciding to make that decision as a child, right? So given that these two children are engaging in such risky behavior that one of them is needing an abortion, I think it makes sense to inform the people that have legal guardianship over them.
Genevieve?
What are your thoughts about states where the legal age of consent is less than 18?
I think in most of those states, when you're talking about the legal age of consent, it's like within like 3 years or something, right? So it'll say like 16, but it's 16 up to 18, and if you go to like 19, you can't do it. It's like within like a certain.
For example, like in Nevada right now, where I live, the legal age of consent is 16. So like, 16-year-olds can consent to have sex like
with
that.
Other 16-year-olds, yeah, you can. Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, sure, but again, when we're talking about like
if they're legally allowed to consent to participating in the action, you don't believe that they should also be legally
with another
allowed
child
to make decisions regarding it?
No, not I don't. I think that they were saying that they consent to sex with like another child. Sure, I can get on board with that. Yeah, I mean, I had sex when I was underage, right? So that I can understand. But if you're saying that, hey, further, they can also consent to a medical procedure as a child. No, that's a step much further than giving your boyfriend a blowjob or something. Right, so I would absolutely want the parents to be informed.
Is it? But like then we're giving them. So, and I think this is where Genevieve is going. We're only half arming them, right? So if we're saying that they can have adult relations between themselves, then and not giving them the recourse to handle it afterwards.
Exactly. Like we give them the license, the right to drive a car, right? But then they're responsible for the actions that happen when they're doing that.
Fanatic, you're about to blow your top. Go ahead.
No, I'm not. I'm still chill. Because it's already gone. So the question is, do you think that it's ever responsible? Do you think that you could ever say it was indicative of responsible behavior that a minor would require an abortion?
I could say the same thing about an adult, I guess.
Okay, but
But
we're
like,
we're focusing on minors first because I think
yeah,
it's obviously
okay.
worse. Would you say
It's
it's
not
ever
they.
indicative of
It could be indicative of irresponsible behavior, or it could be indicative of responsible behavior that still was not enough. The same way it is with adults.
like what? What would be responsible behavior that's not enough that that make them
You
have enough?
get that IUD, like you were talking about, and you still get pregnant. You're on the pill, and like I've heard that like if you take some antibiotics, that like it reduces the effectiveness of a pill, right? And then you still get pregnant. You wear a condom, but because one idiot doesn't know that like condoms break when you use like oil-based lubrication, right? Well, then here you go, you got a baby or some shit like that. All kinds of stuff
Okay,
happens.
so in the IUD situation, if you've gotten the IUD, you probably got that IUD with the consent of your parents, right? Because you shouldn't be able to like to be doing medical elective decisions like that, like implanting things in your bodies, especially things that can have like medical ramifications. Like you shouldn't probably be allowed to do that without the consent of your parents. So if you have the IUD, then your parents are already aware that you're having sex, or else they wouldn't be like recommending an IUD. So then that one doesn't really apply here, right?
Okay, fair enough.
In the situation where like if a condom breaks or something, then there still is a responsible thing that a person can do, such as Plan B or something like that, right? So if that's the case, then in Plan B,
If they have
if a
access.
child, why wouldn't they have access to Plan B?
If they have that, if they can get to a place with Plan B, right, in time, to have it, and they have the cash, right,
You
to
mean
pay
like
for
the local
Plan B.
Walgreens with $53?
If they have, if it's in their,
$53 could be a lot of money to a 16-year-old kid.
exactly that.
I didn't have $50 at
Exactly.
16.
Exactly.
If $53 can be a lot of money to a 16-year-old kid, then why the hell are we pretending like the child is obviously in a life situation where they're responsible enough to be able to talk about abortions? Clearly, that same infantilization that you just did right there is the exact argument for why you need to make sure that parents are informed about like medical decisions that a child is making. Because we recognize, yeah, you don't have the life experience. You're probably not working a job. You probably don't have the real, like that's exactly the point.
And
So
that's
then,
why they
yes,
wanna
we
get-
would say,
That I just made,
and that's exactly right.
I
So,
just sometimes people don't have the financial means to seek out emergency contraceptive. That has nothing to do with being a child or not. I mean, that could happen to anybody of any age. That's
sure,
kind of
but
there.
but the argument that you're making when you were talking
The
about the
argument that I'm making
53-year-old,
is that not being financially responsible to, or not being financially capable of purchasing something, it does not in any way mean that you're not capable of making decisions. If that was true, we wouldn't allow poor people to make their own medical decisions, right? Like that's
no, what I would say when it comes to a minor that probably doesn't have access to this money is because we recognize that they probably don't have the life experience. The average minor doesn't have the work experience. The average minor's obvious brain isn't fully developed, not until the age of 25, right? So like we obviously recognize that these people are children, which is why we obviously restrict the age of consent even for freaking in some places to the age of 18. So the idea that we're going to say, yes, you're a 16-year-old and you have enough autonomy that we shouldn't be alerting your parents about you going through medical decisions is absolutely insane to any person with a normal brain. But you leftists, y'all keep pushing. And this is another perfect example. This is why you guys get the results that you do. You guys are unwilling to concede basic stuff like that children don't have autonomy. And then you get confused when the rest of the world starts saying, nah, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and do wide sweeping freaking legislation and prevent whatever the freak you're talking about and not even play freaking ball. Yeah, we won't even make exceptions for rape and incest and stuff like that because you guys are unwilling to concede on the basic stuff. Like maybe we shouldn't be teaching children about trans issues at 5 years old. Like you guys can't concede on that kind of stuff. And then that's why the right gets so insanely armed. It's crazy. They're kids.
That's not why
So
the right
again,
does
my
anything.
point, my
Fanatics,
original
right, fanatic
point in
ones.
speaking up was that if the age of consent is in some states under the age of 18, should those people then still be required to seek out parental permission for their abortion if they're in a state where they were of legal consenting age? So
Well,
again, I'm
sure,
not talking about
yes.
any of the other stuff that you just brought up.
Okay, sure. So in the cases in which the age of consent is under the age of 16, it doesn't confer automatic like medical autonomy, right? You still have the doctor still have to alert you outside of abortion. The doctor still are required to already to alert you of any medical treatment and things like that that you would be receiving, right? So then I don't know why if you guys keep on doing it, and again, you guys are playing fast and loose, wishy-washy, trying to have it both ways. It's medical concern, it's medical health, it's a medical issue, medical. But then now when it's like, okay, good. So then for medical issues, you have to alert the parents anytime you're doing anything with the freaking kid. Hell, for dental work, you're alerting parents before you do that stuff. It's a medical issue. It's a medical concern. It's health issues. But now all of a sudden it's like, no, we don't need to tell parents about children's medical health issues. Yeah, you guys are doing it, trying to have it both ways.
Fanatic, nice try, right? Nice try. Yes, I think it's just a fucking medical procedure. I don't think it's a big fucking deal. I'm the one who understands that. You are the one who doesn't understand that. You and Eucharist, like, are putting this moral impetus on this procedure that I'm not at all. You are doing that, and that's why we have to not have this notification, right? It's because of
That's
you.
not true
Yes,
at all.
it is.
No,
I
am
agree.
saying it's a medical
I
issue,
agree
and
that
I'm
it's a medical
also
issue.
saying that
And
this
that
medical
if it
thing
was the same-
also has its
if
moral
society-
implication.
If society looked at it the same, looked at all the rest of those medical procedures, right? If it was just the same, then yeah, I'd say sure, let's notify the parents because we do that for all other medical procedures. But like, I'm not the one who's religious here. I'm not the one who uses that.
I'm not using religion as their argument. That's not part of my argumentation.
It's the first of all, I know it's the fucking basis of your belief system here, right?
Okay, so now we're gonna straw man me. Okay, great conversation, buddy.
Okay,
perfect leftist. I've not been using religion as my foundation or my argumentation, but you're arguing against religion.
Have to.
Straw man.
Hold on.
Straw man.
Holy crap! Because you
leftists never actually engage with the things you're talking about. That's why Roe v. Wade got overturned. Face Supreme Court. Thank you, Prime.
That's not
perfect example.
Nice try. Nice fucking try. So one more. Pretend that's not the basis of your moral understanding of the world, right? You can pretend that. That's fine, okay? Whatever. But even if that's the case, even if for some reason abortion is the one thing Mr. Evangelical over here doesn't look through the Bible.
I'm black.
Right?
How can I be an evangelical?
Doesn't matter. Like even if abortion is the one thing that your Christian morals has nothing to do with, right? The one thing that Jesus doesn't touch within your mind. Okay, fine, right? But other people, the rest of society, the rest of the pro-lifers. Yes,
can you argue with the arguments I've presented so far and not your straw man that you've imagined in your brain that I must be arguing from?
I actually just fucking did it, and you're not fucking listening, right?
No, you literally just said religion. I haven't mentioned my religion at all within the argumentation.
Dude,
you're lying.
Oh my God, shut the fuck up, and then you'll fucking understand. So shut the fuck up when I fucking.
You're lying. I never mentioned my religion.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck
up.
You're
such a leftist.
Shut the fuck up, and then you'll understand. Because if you were listening, I literally just accounted for that. I said, even if for some reason it doesn't matter to you, right? A religion doesn't touch this specific aspect of your argumentation, great. But the rest of the population, which I just fucking said, the rest of the population of pro-lifers, they do.
Hey, Prime, just answer this one question. Is this a guilt by association fallacy? Is this a guilt by association fallacy, yes or not?
No, there's not a guilt by association fallacy, obviously, because I'm talking about a rule on society's level. So it doesn't fucking
well, you're saying, you're arguing this, the other people argue this, and they think this way, so guilt by association, it's literally the fallacy.
Dude,
you're such a leftist.
Shut the
I love leftists.
You'll fucking understand.
Woo! Let's go, Face Supreme Court. Go ahead and keep on striking these niggas down. They won't engage you in a real conversation.
You're not talking over me. It'll never happen. You understand that? I'm that nigga here, right? So I talk, right? Not you. So shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Okay. Any which way. Like I said, I'm making a societal rule. The societal rule that parents shouldn't be notified, right? So understanding how society works, like you don't fucking understand, right? Maybe because of Jesus, I don't know, whatever the fuck, right? But I'm making a societal rule because other people within our society, idiot, other people in our, actually I said that, an idiot, sorry. But like other people within our society, I'm so
idiot was where you drew the line.
Don't apologize to that guy.
I'll pull back. I shouldn't have said that. But other people in our society are religious. And that's why we have the rule. Not just because your argumentation. Obviously. Holy shit. right? But you're too fucking self-centered to even get that. Like, oh, were you talking about me? Were you just talking about me? No, I'm talking about everybody. All the pro-lifers. They're all the fucking problem. That's why I'm not putting that rule in place. Obviously. You're unmuted.
Okay, listen, honestly, you know what I'm saying? This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about with the leftists, is that when you argue with the leftists, either they will petulantly shut down the conversation by saying, my body, my choice, or you don't have a cervix, so you don't have a say. They say something like that to shut down the conversation, or they just mute you on their server. So you, or after straw manning, never did I say anything that was even remotely close to this. I'm not talking about this nigga. Wait,
it's amazing, right?
Right. So not ever did I mention this, and again, and this is why I said it's guilt by association fallacy, because if I'm sitting here, right, I'm a narcissist. Okay, it had nothing to do with me, but it was in response to me. I make a point, but then you start talking about society or the people that agree with me. What?
But you think it's all about you. The narcissism is real.
So you are, so okay, all right, got it. I'm sorry, Prime, let me just make sure I'm right here. So you weren't addressing me, you were addressing society. So you weren't addressing me. So wait, let me finish. Can I finish one sentence? Let me finish one freaking sentence, you leftist. So you weren't addressing me, you were addressing society. So if you were addressing society, then that means you weren't addressing the arguments that I put forward. So once again, I give a completely brilliant and eloquent soliloquy, because I am a very articulate nigga. And after I do so, he doesn't even address me. He addresses other people in society. You can't have a conversation with the leftists.
The conversation is about society, but you think
you can't have a conversation with the leftists.
It's all about you. It's amazing. Yeah. The narcissism is real.
Prime. It's not me being narcissistic. We're having a discussion. We're discussing our viewpoints, and you won't even address them. You want to address the rest of society and other random evangelical pro-lifers. You can't have conversations with leftists. That's why we have to have this day Supreme Court. That's why we need it.
Have a conversation with Jesus. Maybe he'll want to explain it to you. Okay, go ahead, Jesus.
You're right.
Actually, have a question for Phonetic. Did you? I just want to make sure I heard you right. Did you say that children don't have autonomy?
I think they have some autonomy, but I don't think they have medical autonomy, and I don't think they have complete medical agency, right? Like they're not their own guardians. That's the words I should have used. That they're not their own guardians, and so because of that, then some of the things have to be given to their parents.
Okay, because I just was gonna say it's just different from you saying that the fetus has autonomy. Like, it seems like you're giving more autonomy to something before it's born than you are afterwards.
It's not that it has autonomy, it just has a right to life. And I don't think a right to life is the same thing as autonomy. And again, I would be talking about more so guardianship, right? Because we obviously recognize like that you can like neglect a kid, like a 1-year-old. And a 1-year-old doesn't have autonomy, but a 1-year-old definitely has a right to life. And that's why I've like corrected that. Yeah. So it's more consistent, I think, in that regard.
Okay.
You know, Fanatic says he's against abortion, but he's making some of these abortions of arguments, right? All night long. Like he's just been doing it over and over.
Panel, man.
So like, look, we could have had a productive conversation. I'd love to talk to Eucharist or Tiberius or even Doobie about this in further detail, but Fanatic just can't even. His argumentation dies in the womb, right? Like it really just does. It's over and over again. It's just honestly, it's kind of boring. It really is. And if it was entertaining, it'd be fun.
Abortion, I do need to wrap this up. I'm almost out of time.
No, it's fine. We're going to end it here. I've already won. On the serious note, on a very serious note, I Fanatic, I do apologize because I didn't mean to call you an idiot. I don't
care about that, Prime. Stop.
No. This is for me. All right. Maybe it's not even for you. But like I have always said like I respect your intelligence, right? And I actually mean it when I say that. So like I didn't mean it. I got too worked up. I called you and I shouldn't have done that, right? Like your arguments were dumbass, but like you yourself, you are a very intelligent individual. So I'm sorry about that. All right.
Listen, I 100% appreciate it, Prime. Listen, I know what this is, right? Because we're having a conversation. Like, this is a really heated issue. And up till now, from the time you were born and everyone in this panel was born, Roe v. Wade has been in place. So from the very, very beginning that we've been having these conversations, there's been a certain level of power that you've had that's allowed you not to be able to engage. You had the thing of being able to say, I don't engage with what you're saying. You're crazy. And then therefore, I don't have to engage and actually hear your arguments. And so then the status quo remains. Right. And I think in this situation, now that we have this blessed Supreme Court that has like overturned this rule, now you're at a position where you're in a like a defeated position, because the power that you've had has been stripped from you. So now when I'm like presenting these amazing arguments, it's really frustrating because you've never had to argue before you can just shut down
some of the
the
Supreme
conversation
Court's
like a petulant
decisions on
child.
voting
And so I
rights
could
and
see
if
like this
fanatics
being
still think they're
frustrating to be
blessed,
encountering a
right?
person that's actually arguing from a really good perspective, and then like not having really like knowing what to argue because you've never had to all this time, and you're a leftist. I get all of it, bro. Like, trust me, we're cool.
All right, fair enough.
But
I
yeah,
do appreciate you.
yeah.
Okay, well, let's wrap this because some people got to go. So thank you all to my audience who has come through. Right, really appreciate you guys stopping by. This has been super heated fun. Guys, if you're enjoying this content, don't worry, we got more of it coming right afterwards. So stick around. We have more content for you. If you've been enjoying it so far, though, hit that follow button right now. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. Because we do this all the time, right? Don't want you to miss out on any of the content. We have so much content for you, right? So hit that follow button before you forget. Exclamation for social in chat for our social media. We got a lot of it. We got Twitter where we tweet things, let you know what's going on. Discord, all this happens, right? If you want to be part of these conversations, it happens in Discord. Holy crap, that's a lot of viewers. What? That's a lot more viewers than I thought. Thank you, Tones Girl, for telling me. I didn't know. I hide my viewer numbers, so I actually didn't know. But you guys must be enjoying this conversation. Holy shit. Yeah, we got a lot of new people here. Guys, hit that follow button. Yeah, Discord, jump to our Discord. TikTok, we got funny videos. We're adding clips there in our TikTok for like clips from these panels that are amusing. You might really like. And YouTube, of course, is where you find the bots. If you missed any of this stuff, then head up to our YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, because become a YouTube member, hitting that join button. I'm supporting us that way. All right. Let me start with Tiberius because apparently he's got to go, so I want to make sure he gets to head out. So Tiberius, thank you so much. It was great having you here. We've missed you. Ty, tell a little bit about yourself.
I appreciate it. So, if anyone doesn't know me, my name is Tiberius D. I studied in economics, political science, and my claim to fame is talking geopolitics. So, while we're here talking about the Supreme Court and how, whether we should have the rights to abortion, other indications, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, South America, and Southern Asia, are having a conversation on how they're going to get food this fall. And according to UN estimates, we're probably going to see about 20 nations go into famine conditions this year. So if you're interested in actually looking upon the world that is greater than the United States, then come join me for the end of the world is just the beginning, because everything goes to hell this year. The war was just the start. And this year will probably be one of the most deadly years on record in human history, particularly going into next year. And if you want to have all the breakdowns of why that's happening and what's going to trigger all that and what it means to you, then come check out my channel. I really would appreciate it. Other than that, thank you for letting me have this moral argument. It's always been fun. Prime, thank you for inviting me, as always. And it's good to see so many of you here. You all treated me with dignity and respect. Whether you did to each other, I'll leave that to you. But always appreciated it.
Fair enough. Thank you, Ty. And everyone hit up Tiberius's channel. Good guy. We like him a lot. It's been with this channel, been with us for a long time. So shout out to Ty. All right, let's give these other people an outro. Remember, guys, we're just giving an outro to these individuals, but the content doesn't end. We still have more content after this. All right, so Eucharist, it's always a treat. Like, god damn it, it's always a treat to have you, buddy. Like, we don't get to have you as often as I want to, but like, you're always fun. I always love your reasoning, even if I disagree with it, for why you believe the things you believe, and you're so good at articulating it. So thank you, Eucharist.
I love being here. I feel like my primary role is to say what I think, and you guys are like, well, that's interesting. Let's talk to people who are more inflammatory for a little bit, and then eventually I get mad about something and I yell for a little bit, and then and then you guys are like, well, okay, Eucharist yelled, so now we can finish the panel, right? That's sort of how it goes. So this is fun. I love coming when I can. Hi guys, I'm Eucharist. I do fake political science, which is political theory, and so I have a real job and a real life, and so I don't do this as much as I want to or as much as I used to. But I might stream again someday. We'll see. I'm going to conclude just by saying I think that all of us would do well to look at some interesting, I think, European case studies that complicate the story that Americans often tell ourselves about abortion. I think the American abortion conversation has been developed discursively since Roe, and in conversation with Roe and then anti-Roe activism. And so we take some pretty extreme positions that I don't know if they're consistent or cogent in the scope of the whole rest of the world. So there are places that I think my friends on the left would think are pretty great places to live, that have high happiness, that have great health outcomes, that have lower maternal mortality and things like that, that are far more restrictive on abortion than we are, that don't justify abortion the way that some of the people in the American conversation try to justify abortion. So I think they're really interesting cases. And then you have cases, again, like Malta, that's like a very small case that it's hard to extrapolate from, but that just bans abortion entirely electively, but handles it ethically, I think, a really interesting way, in a way that seems very consonant with what I already believe. But it's just not clear to me that we need a certain type of abortion regime that we had in America to have good health outcomes or good happiness outcomes or everything else. So I think this is an interesting conversation. As Fanatic has said, I'm glad we're having it. I think we're in a position now where we can have it, and it's going to frame what sorts of federal or state policies might develop going forward. So I think this is important. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. And if you have resources that you said you want us to look at, sources outside the U.S. To develop our discourse, then yeah, let us know.
I'll put them in the Discord for sure.
Thank you so much. Seriously. Okay, let's go. I'm gonna go counterclockwise. We'll go to my Dark Lord and Savior here, Doobie. Doobie, thank you for coming through and being great, like always in our conversations. You're always a lot of fun, and today was no exception. So, Doobie, please tell a little about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Doobie. I help run the politics server on Discord. It's the best and biggest politics server on the platform. We had Roger Stone on the server a couple weeks ago, Buck Angel on Sunday. Was it?
Yep.
Yeah, it was yesterday. And this coming Sunday, we'll have a rabbi, like an actual rabbi on the server, to do an AMA, which should be extremely inflammatory and interesting, given our population of ethernats. But yeah,
You finally get
politics
that
server on
foreskin?
Discord.
Are you going to do that?
Well, we're gonna ask about the foreskin. Now, I'm keeping my foreskin, but I'm sure other people ask where their foreskin went. Yeah. So yeah, that's me.
Doobie's link is in chat. X-Switch with Doobie. If you want to get to the politics Discord server, link is right there. All right, let's go to my friend Wick. Wick, thank you. Wick, you tend to be divisive, but I love you no matter what. All right, buddy. All right, no.
Sometimes, sometimes we fight on the same side. Sometimes we fight against each other. But I always respect you, and I respect almost everyone on this panel, right? Because you treat me with respect, and you treat others with respect. I think we get the energy that we get. Gang, if you like what I said or you hate what I said, you can follow me at twitch.tv/deathofcertainty, all one word. Come on, check us out. And if you have problems with me or a take I've made, talk to me about it, and I'll engage with you no matter what, right? But if you start just kind of threatening women to shut up or else, if you start doing that kind of stuff, I'm probably not going to take you seriously because you're not a serious person. And if you want to cheer on this blessed Supreme Court while they get rid of voting rights for minorities, that's on you. I wouldn't take that position, but hey, people will do what they will do. So give me a follow, gang, and check me out. So yeah, thanks for having me, Prime.
Okay, thank you. Next, Madam Genevieve. Madam Genevieve, she wanted to be a part of this conversation. She actively reached out to me to be a part of this, and I appreciate that. So we're so thankful that you were here. Thanks for spending some of your time with us.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation. I think it's a really important dialogue, and I'm so glad that you created this opportunity. I feel like we might have not made a tremendous amount of forward progress as far as reaching any kind of common ground, but I definitely think we gave the audience some very interesting things to consider, which is super important. I would encourage all of you to do some research on the subject. There'll be some links that have been dropped in the chat, of course, and how it could affect you if you are somebody who lives in a state where maybe your rights have been restricted or will be very soon. There are still resources and support out available for you. So definitely don't feel like you're alone. For anybody who thought that I had some exciting things to say or wants to see more of me otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at Madam_Genevieve or twitch.tv Madam Genevieve.
Thank you. And I'd like to maybe talk to you on other subjects, especially your other things like we've talked about sex work a lot. So people love talking about that. So that might be something interesting we could discuss.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've listened to some of your panels that you've had around sex work previously before you and I were in communication with each other. So I think that would totally be something that we should set up in the future.
Absolutely. Fantastic. All right. Next, we have Ginger. Ginger, our friend, who also I think reached out because she wanted to be a part of this. So again, thank you to you as well, Ginger, for doing that. And we definitely appreciate your presence here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation. It was fun. You can find me at twitch.tv/gingerrama with 2 R's. Make sure you put that second R in there. I do mostly gaming and cosplay, but I do panels every now and then. I will also be on Somebody Online's panel this Wednesday. We're going to be discussing this again, but also about the foster care system and what we can do and talk about to make it better in our society.
Thank you so much. And last and most, okay, all right. My friend Fanatic, I sing your praises all the time, and for good reason, right? Because I love the fight. Whether you're on my side or not, I love the fight. And again, it's a role that I've set for myself is that we attack the arguments, not the person. So again, I apologize, even though you're okay with it. I just gotta say, it wasn't called for. But my man, Fanatic, thank you for coming through and being a good sport about it.
I respect that. You can say last but longest. So anyway, listen. At the end of the day, the reason why this timeline really, really excites me to the level that it does is specifically the fact that if you really look at it, like again, my entire life, I've always lived where Roe v. Wade was in place. So again, when I would try to engage with people about it, like like the idea that like, hey, this is a life inside of someone that we were taking away. You would get shut down like instantly, and you see people still doing it now. Like, and they had the ability to do so because again, if the status quo remained, then they didn't have to change anything. We see this thing when it comes to like civil rights issues, right? Or like with your parents, when they have the power and they want you to do something, you ask them like, why? Or can I do this instead? And they say, no, because I said so. That means because I have the power, you just got to capitulate. And so then I get my way. So for the first time now, they're not just getting their way for free. Now we're at a place where like you're going to have to actually articulate it. And what we're finding is that none of them know how. All they know how to do is just use their same old talking points, try to label you, and that doesn't do anything. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't hurt me at all. I know what a leftist is. And so now we're going to actually finally see where the engagement is. And we're finding that they don't actually have any, as you saw in this conversation. All they could do is interrupt me nonstop and just be idiots. So, and misrepresent me, like use other talking points. It's stupid. Anyway, you can find me, twitch.tv/Mr. Fanatic. I'm a conservative progressive guy, right? And so we're living in a perfect time for me. We got a conservative Supreme Court. They're going to be pushing all the amazing things that I would like. And we also have Democratic president and Democrat House and Democrat Senate. And I would say that they're going to be pushing the things that I want, but they're not actually going to push the things I want because the Democrats don't care about black people. So yeah, you can find me twitch.tv/Mr. Fanatic. You can find my music on every platform. Now you think that my takes is ridiculous. Wait till you hear my music, okay? Now some of you idiots are going to be curious and actually check it out. And some of you morons are just going to go ahead and say, nah, I'm not going to listen to his music because I don't like his actual political takes, as if those two things are connected. And some of you morons can go ahead and maintain that position. But listen, my music is actually ridiculous. I'm a better musician than I am anything else. Yeah, so it's under the name Fanatic. I have 3 albums out. You can check all those things out. There's probably links somewhere, but I don't feel like linking it because I'm lazy. I'm in the middle of gaming League of Legends, and you can follow my stream where I'm playing at right now.
Are you a better musician than you are a lover?
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy to say that too, because I'm actually really ridiculous. But like, this was literally, music was gifted to me by God. Like, the things that I can do musically are things that like other people in the world can't do. Like 99% of people in the world can't do. So, I mean, I do have like ridiculous length and girth though. So I don't know. Maybe, who knows?
For all the crap I give Fnatic, I will agree. His music is good. Check it out. But that's really where you should stop listening to him. But his music's good.
All right. Well, that's a nice thing to say. Okay. And one other thing, Fnatic, can I tempt you to having that conversation with me after this on the coach?
Coach.
What's the prayer in school.
Yeah, the prayer thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah. When do you want to do that?
Like after this.
Like open panel.
Have time?
Yeah.
Okay,
let's do it.
Great. All right. So, thank you so much. We're already there's your content right there. We're about to have that. So stick around for that. We are continue. We're gonna continue on to open walk on panel. Anyone here can join us, but if not, that's okay. Thanks for spending your time, your energy, and all your fucking passion with myself and my audience here. Right? I'm sure they appreciate it just as much as I do. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.